Thanks, Viv, for agreeing to talk to Footy with Dad. The reason why I formed Footy with Dad is 12 years ago my son was born, and he spent the first 11 months in hospital. He had severe respiratory issues. And as I sat by his bedside, I prayed and dreamt that one day he would be well enough for me to take him to a football match. Fortunately, despite numerous other operations since he came home, 4 years ago, I was able to do just that. He absolutely loved it. Mm-hmm. What are your childhood memories of watching football?
I used to play on the streets with my mates and stuff like that. And my dad was a big into cricket, so he never really went to football matches. So I never had the experience that you've had. But subsequently now I've got 3 children, 2 boys. Funnily enough, one of them's in the Manchester City Academy. Okay. So I spend most of my week driving him about to training sessions and to games and everything else. Yeah. So I see a lot of my son throughout the week. And funnily enough, this weekend I'm taking him to watch Manchester City versus Leicester, I think. So,
okay, that's right.
So I'm looking forward to that. But we're going in the posh seats because a friend of mine's got some posh tickets. So we're going to have some nice food and we're going to go together and have a boys' day out.
Excellent. And they love going?
Yeah, he does. He loves football.
Loves the emotional bond.
He loves everything. Yeah. He loves everything about football. It's not one day he doesn't say I don't want to go training. He loves the idea of being a footballer. Now, whether he'll make a footballer, I don't know. We'll soon find out. But at this moment in time, it's all about enjoyment, and he enjoys it very much.
Okay. And when you was there a particular game, watching football as a child or growing up that really stood out for you?
I was very fortunate because I started my journey playing football. I was on a beach in Skegness, and somebody came up to me and says, "Would you like a trial?" I was playing with the ball on my own. I said, "Would you like a trial?" I said, "A trial? For what?" Sheffield United. So I went to Sheffield United for a little while, and then Manchester United said, "Come and have a trial with us." So I went every school holiday up to Manchester to train with people like myself, and we watched Best Lawn Charlton train on the next pitch.
Amazing.
So it doesn't get any better than that, does it?
Sure.
So for a year, and then they said, "Sorry, Viv, you're not going to make it here at Manchester United." So I went back. I got a job for about 6 weeks, and there was a silkscreen printer, which is a glorified T-boy. And then after that, the Forest said to me, "Would you play for our youth team?" So I played for the youth team twice, and I signed at 17, and I made my debut when I was 17. So Excellent. It was a long journey, but it was a good journey.
Excellent, no, definitely. And how do you think football has changed from when you watched football as a child to children watching football nowadays?
I think there's areas for children now. Back in the day when I went to football matches, there wasn't segregated areas for children and things like that. So it's changed a hell of a lot. And I think football clubs now appreciate the younger supporter because they're the next generation of supporters. So they should encourage dads and taking their sons to football matches because as I said, they're the next generation of footballers or football supporters.
No, definitely. And do you feel that obviously the amount of money that's coming into the game, mainly obviously through Sky, do you think football clubs should
I missed out on all that money as well. Yes, yeah, go on.
Do you think football clubs should be doing more to get children to games?
I think so, yeah. Encourage the next generation of football supporters, yes. There is a lot of money in the game now. And I think in their little ways, some clubs are doing their bits. But you can always do a lot more, I think, to encourage families to come to football matches. Price, for instance, that's a big thing, If you can lower the prices to make it affordable for the normal working class family to go to football matches, that would help as well. I think some of the clubs are trying to implement them sort of things.
Some of them are. Yeah. I mean, like today's game, for instance, Spurs are playing Newport. They're doing a family of 4 for £20, right, which is great. But it's not. I don't personally think it's being done enough.
Well, you've got a valid point. I saw Notts County at the weekend. There was 17,000, the best crowd they've had for about 20 years. Yeah. But the entry, it was £2. So the people are doing as we speak. They are making an effort. So you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
hopefully some other people take that on board.
No, definitely. I started watching football in 1979 as an 8-year-old.
And it was always been Spurs, has it?
It's always been Spurs.
I'll try and talk you around this conversation. We'll see.
We'll go on to that in a minute. obviously, since then, probably the two most successful and famous managers has been Brian Clough and Sir Alex Ferguson. And you've played under both of them.
Yes, I have, yes.
Sir Alex's first signing, I believe.
Yeah, alphabetically. Myself and Brian McClare came together, so I won it alphabetically.
Okay, lovely. How did they differ?
I wish I had a pound every time everybody's asked me this question. They don't differ very much, really. They want to play football in the right way. They're very encouraging, both of them really encouraging. If you cross either of them, you know about it very, very quickly.
I'm sure.
Yes. So on both ends, yeah. So, the philosophy that they both instill in the players is second to none. You know, they want you to play fast, attractive football, passing the ball, move, and it was a joy to work with both of them. Now, don't ask me who you say is the better at the two.
I didn't on purpose.
But I would say Sir Alex has done an unbelievable job at Manchester United. You know, the legacy he leaves will live on for years and years and years. But I just look at Forest in that short. It was only for a 5-year window.
Yeah.
You know, we won 2 European Cups. We used to train on a field with. We used to get the cows off before we could train. So you know, you look at the modern
Somewhat
day
different
football.
today.
Monday footballers now. You know, it's a different thing completely.
Sure.
So for them to achieve what they did and win the league and everything else, I think the Cloughy period would just sneak it a little bit for me.
And can you believe that Brian Clough was never made England manager?
I can't believe it. They never. I think they offered him. Well, I don't think they offered him. They interviewed him, put it that way. And I think personally it would have done his head in because there's so many things you have to do to be England manager.
Sure.
You know, sometimes he wouldn't speak to the press when he was at Forest, and all the things he did, I think, would drive him daft. I think, you know.
Sure.
So I think he wouldn't have enjoyed the experience. I don't think because there's a lot to undertake to be England manager, and thankfully he stayed at Forest. It was good for me.
No, definitely. Well, this weekend we see a North London derby, Spurs v Arsenal.
Yes. Is it Spurs v Arsenal or Arsenal v Spurs?
It's Spurs v Arsenal. It's at Spurs. Well, it's at Wembley.
Wembley, yeah.
You've obviously played in many a derby.
Yes. I think we beat you in the semi-final one year, didn't we?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No,
I thought it'd come out of your memory. That, yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Thanks, Viv. Out of all the derbies that you've played in, what would you say was the most sort of intense or hostile atmosphere?
Obviously, the semi-final one was really intense because obviously it's Wembley at stake and the chance of winning a major competition. So I always remember that one. But you always remember the ones you win. So, but I can't remember. The time I was at Arsenal, how many derbies I did play in, I can't remember. But I've played in obviously the Manchester derby.
I was going to say, obviously times have changed. Obviously, when you played, City weren't the
exactly.
force they are now.
Exactly
so,
right, yeah.
Did you play City?
Yeah. Well, I played the infamous day when we started off. Where there's a pitch invasion at one end. They took us all off and they came back on again. We got beat 5-1. So I played in that. So everybody, I'm glad they beat that record the other week. They beat them 6 or something, didn't they? So they don't talk about that record now. So everybody used to mention that. So, but I've played in that one. And I played in obviously the Nottingham derbies, which is always quite intense. But the London derbies is really, really special, I think. Yeah. I must admit.
Fair enough. I read somewhere that the best player you had played with was Brian Robson.
Yeah.
Who would you say was your hardest opponent during your playing career?
Well, first and foremost, they're all hard. They're all hard until you're about 3-0 up. And we had some good battles. John Barnes was really a good battle. John Barnes would say I was one of the hardest to play against, and he would say, and I'd say he was the hardest to play against because we all had good battles. Because Liverpool and Man United were always good games.
Sure.
I remember as a young lad, we played Fulham away. And George Best played when Rodney Marsh played for Fulham then. Okay. And I'd never slept the night before thinking, George Best is not taking the mickey at me tomorrow. I couldn't sleep. I kept going through my George Best. And I think we drew 1-1, but it was a good experience. He was tricky to mark, but he was coming to the end of his career then. But I'd say John Barnes. And
did he score though?
No, he didn't.
That's all right. So you won.
I wouldn't go that far. Willie Johnson, who was a really good winger, played for West Brom back in the day. Sadly, I've just been to Cyril's funeral recently, and people like that were there, you know, Derek Staven, people like that, and they had a really good team at that time, and we had some real big battles, especially in the Midlands. West Brom, Forest, there were really big games at that time. So they were tricky games as well. I remember as a youngster as well playing against Willie Morgan. He was playing for Preston, and I had a torrid time, just couldn't get anywhere near him because he had a wise old head and I was trying to do things and didn't come off. But these things stick in your mind, and those are ones I would mention, yeah.
Sure, lovely. And nowadays you're CEO of Play On.
Yeah.
And just explain a little bit more about that.
We look after the players, the transition from playing to whatever, you know.
Right.
So there's a big gap between when they finish and what they do next, you know, because most of them, remember your sons and my son, they've been playing football since they were 7 or 8,
Sure.
and they've played all the way through, had a career, and then what do you do? Got no qualifications, no this. So we try and guide them in that path onto the next 20, 30 years of their life, because it is in one, I've read a book somewhere, it said it's like an bereavement, or it's like falling off a cliff when you actually finish. You haven't got the camaraderie, you haven't got what you had, you know, you relied on for 20 odd years. So we're trying to do that. We've built an app that they can get WhatsApp groups together. So it's for sports sports people, not just footballers. It's sport. We just got today a girl called Gail Ems, who was a badminton player.
Right.
So she fell on hard times. She came back from the Olympics, won a silver medal. Everybody wanted to know her. Then 6 months later, they wanted somebody else, and she was said badminton since she was 7. So you had nothing. So she falls into the category of what do they do next. So we can help them to guide them into wherever they want to go next.
It's so important.
Yeah, it's so important. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, one of the main aims of Footy with Dad is to get underprivileged children to football matches. And we've now got our website, FootieWithDad.com, and there's a donation page on there where people can donate. Obviously, you've had a hugely successful career, first black player to play for England. You've won league, European Cups, MBE. What would your advice be to an aspiring young child who not necessarily succeed in football, but to succeed in life? What would your advice be?
Listen to your peers, listen to your mum and dad, listen to your teacher, listen to people that you respect, and take their advice, you know, try and listen to what they've got to say. I say that to my son. You listen to the coaches and take on board what they're trying to instill in you, whether it be being late or picking up, being on time for things. Make sure you've got the right equipment, you've got everything ready to do your job, you know, and it's really important you get that discipline in you. And the earlier you can get that into children, the better they're going to be in the later lives, I think. So I think discipline is really important, and listen to your peers and your mums and dads, and don't cheek them off like my two do.
I think they're all the same.
Yeah, I think they are.
Viv, thank you very much for stopping by to talk to Footy with Dad.
You're welcome.
Very appreciative.
It's a very good cause.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.